Yo, good people, what's up, what's good? We are back for another edition of our Millennial Masterclass series. Thank you all so very much for tuning in to the 3 Milli podcast. It's your boy, host of the show, Caleb Smith. Today we have Stay Conscious Media coming through. We'll be talking about protests, millennials, how we can help during this time, and really how our voices are like rising up during this moment. So we'll talk about Portland, we'll talk about the protests, of course, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. So this will be a dope conversation. Tap in if you're watching this on IGTV after it's already posted. Drop a comment. Tell us your favorite part about the conversation. If you're tuned in right now, show love, share this live. We about to get this thing going. Let me pin this comment and then we'll get started. What's up, y'all?
Hi.
How you guys feeling?
Good. How are you?
Good.
We are much time together. Hold on.
Nah, you cool.
Ah,
Let's get it together.
there we go. Wait, and when it came in the frame. Okay.
First off, thank you all so much for coming onto the platform. I appreciate what you all are doing. It's needed. So I'm super proud of y'all. Keep doing what you're doing for real.
Thank you.
No problem. Starting off, I saw your page. I loved it. Talise, you already know your mom. She told me about it. I checked it out. I was like, yo, this is fire. So what inspired you all to talk about social justice, racism, breaking down systemic versus systematic? I even learned something from watching that. So what inspired this, and how do you feel about what you guys are currently doing right now?
So what first inspired Stay Conscious was actually a conversation that Talisa and I had. I can't remember what we were talking about, but it was so open and like so free-flowing and organic, and we were just like, wow, I wish everyone at school could have this. Mm-hmm. And so that's the idea of Stay Conscious. But then when we realized that we weren't going to be able to make the club at the end of our junior year, okay, why not just start?
I love it. And the name, Stay Conscious. What's the story behind choosing that name? Because consciousness is so important. So to see y'all being young and to have Stay Conscious as a name is dope. So how'd that happen?
Well, because what was funny was I was telling Kennedy, a lot of people don't like this term "stay woke." Because, it implies that you were ever asleep or you were never aware of what was going on. It's just popular, that mentality and everything now. And then I never looked at stay woke like that, so I was like, stay conscious, because it implies they were never asleep, but also stay aware, more stay aware of your surroundings and caring about other people. So I was like, I like stay conscious better than stay woke. And I thought it was pretty unique because a lot of people don't normally say stay conscious, they say stay woke. Yeah.
Dope. And today I want to learn a lot from you all because y'all have so much knowledge. So I'm about to ask a lot of questions. When it comes to the protests, and especially when it comes to Breonna Taylor, how do you feel about black women sometimes not getting highlighted as much as black men when it comes to police brutality? Because me as a black man, I even see it in the media of how George Floyd, he gets more shine, but we don't really hear about the Sandra Bland's of the world, or even with Breonna Taylor, justice still hasn't been served one iota. But with George Floyd, the moment things start popping off, all right, let's try to move something just a little bit so everybody does shut up. But it's with Breonna, everybody's been talking forever and it's still nothing happening. Tatiana Jefferson, people forget about her. Nobody even says her name at all. And that was back in September. So how do y'all feel about black women not being highlighted enough?
I think it's something that people definitely need to be aware of, because it's yes, black women are both black and women, but it's never that we can take off one identity for the other. We all identify with our gender, and we can't take off our skin. And that's where the whole concept of intersectionality comes in, where the multiple identities that you possess bring their own oppression with them. And so being a black woman, we have the oppression of racism and have the oppression of sexism. And so when we're at the intersection between those, it's we become invisible because everyone's so used to just looking on black, or just looking for a woman. And because the intersection of both, people see us. And I feel of course it's problematic because it's we're here too. And Talisa and I have both spoken to a lot of black of our age, and it's we feel that we come and we stand up for our black brothers. We don't necessarily always get that in return, and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said, the most underprivileged and overlooked person in America is the black woman. So I feel like at
Hey.
the I feel like at the end of the it's like sad that we're not surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kennedy and I went to the protest, and like literally the black woman was the person to say her name. Like no one was saying Breonna Taylor's name. It was always George Floyd or all the other victims of brutality. But finally, a black woman at the end of the protest said Breonna Taylor, which was just like crazy to me because there were like over 1,000 people there.
And
Yeah.
like this problem, it's materialized in the fact that Breonna Taylor's case still really hasn't gotten enough gotten traction as George Floyd's case has.
Facts, facts. And it's crazy because Malcolm X, he said this like over 50 years ago, that the black woman is the least protected, neglected. I mean, all of these things in America. And the fact that it's still relevant till this day. So as a black man, and for my fellow black men, how can we help to change that narrative? Because we're with y'all every day, our mothers, our girlfriends, our sisters. So y'all are us, like we are around y'all. So how can we protect y'all more effectively? Because I know that there's some out there, but how can we do a better job overall?
I would say make sure you not only hear us, but you see us and
Yes.
listen to us. Like every experience is valid, no matter where or who it comes from. And I think that's something you have to remember and take to heart.
Yeah, and yeah, like just like see us, like you know what I mean. Like don't put us on the back burner. And like I know, especially a lot of people like our age group, like black women, they're like they
Black
just
women,
like
they don't need help. They're so strong.
exactly. They're like, why would we need to talk to them? You know what I mean? It's like why would we need to talk about them? Like they talk for them. So and like they don't ever listen to us. So it's like we need to present us alongside all of us as well. That makes sense.
Most definitely, most definitely. And speaking on that point, recently, I think it was like on Saturday, I saw a meme and I was like, yo, that's crazy. It showed this black woman, she was drowning and she
And
was like waving her hand. She was like, save me, right? And then they were like, oh, she's so strong. And it's like she's drowning. And I felt like that was so powerful because that's exactly what's going on because black women have so much on their shoulders that people think is normal. Like she's supposed to be carrying all of that weight. And that she's straight because she's strong. So it's like somebody in a gym and they're lifting 300 pounds and they might be struggling, but you think because, oh, he's swole, he got it. But nah, like he might need some help on the bench. So somebody help him out. So I feel like y'all go through the same exact thing. So what are some pressures as young black women? Because I feel like people think just because you're young that you don't go through anything. So what are some pressures that young black women, such as you all, have to go through, like on a day-to-day basis?
I would say like I've talked to Kennedy a lot about this, but like we're both in the advanced placement program, and like at our school, black women come very few and far between. And we're always somehow like the representative of the race and like the black community and together that intersectional issue. And I'm always like, how does like we can't speak for the entire race? Like we only person out of 42% of the population in America. So I'm like, I can't speak for everybody.
Right.
And also, we have to be successful because they see it as not common. You know what I mean? Like they see it for a black woman to go to college, be an engineer, or be somewhere in the social sciences, or go to law school, white collar jobs. So that's something that I see, especially going to school. I mean, I'm not in like the real world yet.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, exactly. Or just like seeing other black men put black women down. Like, there was this trend on TikTok that I brought up in one of our classes that we take, where black men down black women are to date us because we are too independent or too stubborn. You were raised by a black woman. I'm gonna put down black women. Like, I understand that. So that's just a few things that I've noticed, just like being my age and on social media, and really just putting down like the stereotypical characteristics of a black woman.
Yeah, the last three things that we said really resonated with me. As I'm beginning my search for college, I'm having this internal pressure on myself. Like I have to get in. Like, there is no exception. And it's like me kind of making those external pressures my internal, and it's not the health, but I think it's something that we've all experienced. And then the kind of stereotypes that Black women are reduced to, I feel that I can see those when I'm in school, how people are kind of always throwing in, or kind of reacting to me as though I am the angry Black woman, or as I am the strong, independent woman. While those are both true, they're not like the entirety of who I am or who people of my race and my are. And so, I mean, just operating as though we all are stereotypes, not.
Yeah, because y'all brought up some great points that we can like focus on real quick. So AP classes, right? And I think that that's going to be a great discussion because I went to Georgia State. At Georgia State, I took AP classes in college. So I was in the honors college, and 9 times out of 10, I was the only Black person in the room. So sometimes in those situations, I remember taking a U.S. history class, and we actually had a Black professor, and we were talking about Nat Turner, right? And we were talking about, or pretty much me, because I'm the only Black person, but about Nat Turner, like what he did was justified because at the end of the day, it's fight or flight. So, like for instance, in White America, George Washington is highlighted, but technically he was a rebel. And technically he had to do what he had to do to get his own freedom, right? So then why is it with Nat Turner, all the white students said, well, maybe he could have just negotiated with his slave masters. Or maybe he could have just talked peacefully. And I'm like, yo, they have him in chains. His people's getting raped, robbed, and murdered. And you're saying that he should negotiate with these people. But then when 9/11 happened, y'all talking about let's go blow them up. So then in those situations, I feel like double consciousness has to take place because yes, you can intellectually express yourself, but eventually you're going to get angry or emotional. Because I even had to, because I didn't snap, but I even had to say, yo, Caleb, if you keep going with them, something's going to happen, bro. So with you all being in AP classes, right? Growing up in Fayette County, McIntosh, we already know. Like, we don't even have to explain that. As Black women, how challenging is it sometimes when history is brought up and you know that it's not true? If they say like Christopher Columbus discovered America, or the Pythagorean theorem where they're telling you that a Greek person has a theory about pyramids, but the Egyptians came before the Greeks. So how does it feel sometimes to be in a learning environment where you're the only Black person, Black woman on top of that, and you have to make sure that you're not the angry Black woman sometimes while you're in these high profile educational settings?
That's a great question.
I was just saying. Well, I took AP US History this year. And not like, not all the time because my teacher was pretty considerate, but like all the time, like most of the time, they always, whenever like slavery brought up, they look immediately at me like I was there. I'm like, I was not there. Like that's like personal connection. But I like was not there, and I'm not gonna be the only person that's like triggered by slavery. Like you don't have to treat like some type of like fragile glass. You know what I mean? I've learned about it. I've learned probably more than everybody in the whole room about. And yes, it's like an issue where they don't really understand how that's a problem. Like, they don't understand, like, how if you target a Black person, how that makes you uncomfortable about slavery. Like, you can't just be like, well, Talise, like, you know. And then I'm like, I don't know, because I wasn't there.
Facts. Yep.
And, like, and Kennedy and I have talked about it a lot. It's, like, the tiptoeing. Like, especially because we are Black and we know a lot. Like, a lot of people that we know a lot about social justice issues and politics. So, like, they tiptoe and try not to be offensive. But I'm like, just say what you want to say. We'll tell you if it's offensive. We'll be like, oh, like, don't say it again. Probably say this. We're not going to be like, jump down the throat. Again, that's the stereotype of being like the angry Black woman. We're not going to talk on you immediately because you think like, you know, politically incorrect. We're going to try to help you. So
exactly.
And that's something that was really important to me when it came to stay conscious, was I didn't want to create like that white guilt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You were like afraid to say something because you were white, and you didn't want to be that white person that was like, am I allowed to say that? You know? Because that, like, we wanted to create an open space where it was like great conversation. So, and like that feeling came from being in school around people that didn't understand. Does that make sense?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Completely accurate. Like in the educational spaces that you were speaking of, like for the longest time, I felt like I couldn't use my voice to say what I knew was right because,
Yeah.
and I've recently, like ninth grade, I'll say, is when I started to like kind of go against that conditioning that I had. And
Yeah.
I will say that like being in Fayette County for my entire life, I've gotten used to the curriculum leaving parts out or not explaining all perspectives.
Yeah.
And something that I think is really interesting is that when we discuss slavery and history, the teachers love to say, "Oh, we all know the tragedy of slavery," but they don't like to go into the details. And I, if they did, so that my people in the back can really understand that when we bring up slavery, it's not because we have a grudge. It's because that junk was traumatic. Like
it affects everything.
It affects everything and it still exists. And so with that, I hate, like Tilly said, when they tiptoe around the issue of slavery because it's something that needs to be hashed so that everyone understands why it's possible that people are still hurt by it.
Yeah.
Another thing, something that just personally bothers me, especially in educational settings, they tiptoe around the word black as though it is a bad word.
Oh my God.
African Americans.
It's they it up. African Americans. Oh, what I hate is like the blacks. I hate that.
Yeah. Or blacks.
Y'all preaching to the choir, man.
I'm like, stop. Like, don't say the blacks.
We're not crayons, man.
Yeah.
The blacks.
Bothersome. And it's like, I can understand that you're trying to be politically correct, but it's not a bad word. And I think you being scared makes it seem as though like you're not really sure what power that word holds, and that's something that we can reconcile together. We can go through together because I mean it's not just an obscure word that's referring to a group that doesn't exist or that has no personal connection to it. You're referring to me, and I think we should come to a common understanding about how I feel comfortable being referred to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Y'all are awesome.
Oh, sorry.
No, I just said y'all are awesome. This is great.
Okay.
This is great.
I always try to explain to my friends, like, words always, like, change in how socially acceptable they are. Like, at one point, like, the word colored was okay. Like, people were okay with being called colored. But now, like, you wouldn't dare.
That's an insult. Yeah, that's an insult.
I was
the
like,
colored.
So, in 50, 60 years, black is not going to be okay. People are going to want to say, you know, I don't even know what they're going to want to be called. We're going to be older. But as of right now, saying black is okay. Like, you know what I mean?
It's not a bad word.
It's not a bad word. Exactly. Yeah. We don't know how words are going to affect people in the future. And so right now, like, really just feel around friends. Don't be afraid. And if they jump down your throat, that's more their problem.
Then it is your problem.
Yeah, because they instantly got offended for you trying to be politically correct. Like, I just don't understand when, you know, I've seen it a lot, especially, like, you know, fellow black people and other people of color. Don't instantly be upset when they try to ask. Like, sometimes they're genuinely trying to ask what's happening about the whole honest conversation. The best way to learn is through conversation. That's how I learn about everything. I'm talking to Kennedy. I'm talking to my teachers. I'm talking to my friends. You know what I mean? So
most definitely. And conversations, because that's the perfect segue, because that was about to be my next question.
Oh, great.
One thing that, as a black person, I get tired of hearing sometimes is when I'm watching the news and it's white liberal people or just white people on the right, wherever, white people in general, when they'll say, we just need to have these tough conversations. And me and my friends, we always look around like, yo, we've been trying to have conversations. Like, Frederick Douglass was trying to have conversations where he was talking about what the 4th of July means to the Negro. And nobody even paid attention to that. Or we can go 100, 200 years later, we got Martin Luther King, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison. Like, we can keep going on and on. Ida B. Wells, 50 years prior to that. So we've been trying. So I think for me, as a black person in America, it gets frustrating when I hear white people talk about we need to have these tough conversations. But then when these conversations take place, you run from slavery or you run from all these traumatic experiences that black people went through. So it's like, are you really willing to have these conversations? Because for the first time, white people will have to look at themselves in the mirror. So it's a great book called White Fragility. If you guys ever get the chance to check that out, Robert DiAngelo. Have you guys read it?
I have yet to, but
y'all are legends, man. Y'all are legends. So to be so young, already equipped like that, y'all got the game. But I think that that's powerful, and even the term white fragility, because it's like they can't. Most white people sometimes really can't have those real conversations. So, do you all ever get frustrated when you're trying to be patient as a black person and as a black woman, and they're still running from the conversation sometimes?
yes, like
Yeah.
we've created with Stay Conscious, we've created where we can have open, like podcasts with one about 2 times, and we've tried to make sure that people know that it's okay to have these conversations. But you're completely right. Like, people are so uncomfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable, and that's something no one has yet to realize has to happen. And that's why people are still saying we just have to have these tough, but aren't willing to. They don't want to be in the hot seat. They want to acknowledge what has been going on because they feel it is personal. But I mean, we talk about slavery. I feel that it's personal. No, I wasn't there. So there are some burdens that you take on, and it's because you just feel like they're yours. It's not that you make them yours. That's just how you feel. And that's a choice, and it's something that you have to reconcile with. And I mean, we can do it together. One thing that I love to say to my friends about like having these conversations, like, don't be scared. Bring me what you have, and we can unpack it together.
Yeah.
Like, and I think a lot of people who are afraid to have conversations are like afraid that there's going to be a lack of or a lack of understanding. But people who are really invested in this will know that they'll have to meet who you are, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And definitely, like, when I've found like having conversations where they don't like, it's not a reciprocated energy of like we're both just trying to understand, is ready to have the conversation until like I'm about to say
Exactly.
like there's conversation, and then as soon as I say, well, it kind of is this or that, and they're instantly defensive. It's never a okay, well, and then I'll try to, well, I might not understand, trying to meet them halfway. Instantly a wall built or no understanding of each other, and then that's what happened. And especially like being in school, like starting school, but that's pretty much all we do. Like all the time, like in school, especially like our friends, they'll be more understanding, but like people that I'm completely associated with, that they don't understand what I do or how I do this, or I do a lot, they're not able to understand why I know so much. Like, well, how do you know this? How do you know that? And I'm like, well, I try to read about it. I'm passionate about it. You know what I mean?
Free information.
Yeah, like I've put myself out there to understand information, or if somebody comes asking me about a certain thing, I'm like, oh, well, how do you know this book or this movie? Because I don't want to personally offend them. I know how sometimes these conversations go. So that's personally my conversation and talking to people. It's always a learning curve. Sometimes people throw out something when I'm talking to them, and I'm like, wait, I didn't say that. I didn't think it was gonna go there. But I would say like about 70% of, no, almost 80% of the conversations we've had are pretty positive, and they do try to learn. Like direct message conversations. Like people direct message us with conversation and like questions, and I'm like, yes, like
so far
so
it's
trying to learn.
And that's what I love, and that's what really is all about. Like, we're really like, people just don't understand. You have to come to the conversation not invested in making your argument the winning argument, but invested in getting a common understanding. Yes. That's all that needs to be had in order for the conversation to be productive. And in order to make sure that you gain an understanding, you got to be empathetic. You got to be open-minded. You have to be cordial in some respects. And all of that isn't bad. All of that is really good, because that's how you make sure that even after the tough conversation you have a positive relationship after the fact. And then you're allies. And that's a plus.
That's facts. That's facts. Shout out to Miss Denise in the comments. She said, talk about the round tables. Talk about the round tables.
We did. We talked about it, Mom.
And all of your talking points are amazing because these are things that actually need to happen, and you guys are actually doing the work that's needed to change these things. Another thing about white fragility in the book that I loved was breaking down how when white people say that they don't see race, right? And what Robin DiAngelo said was so deep because I never thought about this. As growing in Fayette County, of course, you hear this all the time. I don't see race, yada, yada, yada. Is that you're throwing away somebody's identity. You're saying that I don't see you. So, and I thought that that was so deep because it's like you don't have any culture, you don't have any heritage, you don't have any lineage, nothing. So I'm going to push you to the side and I just see you. I don't see color. So how do you all feel growing up in Fayette County? And I know you all probably heard this at least once or twice when somebody says that they don't see race. So how do y'all feel about that?
Well, there's actually this quote. I don't know who said it. You'll probably know. Where it's like, if you don't see race, you don't see my color, you don't see me.
Oh yeah, that was I think Alice Walker.
And Alice Walker, I think. That and I could not agree more.
Yeah.
Your race and like is who you are. Like your race associates with culture and associates to how you grew up and how you are. Like if we weren't like, we're very tied to like our blackness and like how black we are, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that like when people say that, it's ignorance. Like, you know, for you to not say that you don't see our color is wrong because you're looking at me directly, and if you don't see my color, you're not really seeing me. Like I don't.
Nah.
To put it quite frankly, I don't understand that, and I never have. Like black culture. Like you know that black culture exists. So for you to say you don't see the color it's like, you know, inaccurate. Like going around saying like people don't love black people, but they love our culture. And so you don't see color is just like it's absurd. Like I don't know how to else put it.
First of all, it's a lie because I know when you're talking to me that I look different. And you may not like jump from that to an assumption about me, but you see it. And I completely agree with the author of White Fragility. If you choose not to see my color, then in instances where my color matters, you choose to invalidate my experience. Yeah. So like I saw a protest poster and it was like, if you don't see color, you don't see patterns. And that's so fact.
It's
like
so
you don't know how to drive. You have to see colors at the red light, right?
Exactly.
You have to see a stop sign. I mean, that's common sense.
Like and that's the point. Like you just, and people are doing it, I don't think from a place of malice or a place of ignorance. They're trying to be liberal. They're trying to be open-minded, but
in the wrong way.
Times have changed. Back in the day, that was fine because, you know, the whole issue was the color line. So if you don't see it, blur it. Maybe we can integrate. But now we see that hasn't happened yet. So we have to come with a new attitude. And that new attitude is my color, acknowledging my, and then going from there.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Y'all are preaching. I'm learning so much. I'm loving this conversation.
I love this.
Amazing.
Conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Talise, your mom, hey, she's dropping facts. She out here, power to the people. She said black culture dominates all culture. And to me, that statement is a fact. But that even right there would be considered controversial if we said this on national television. And that actually sparked something because how we dress, people try to emulate that. How we walk, how we talk, how we wear our hair. How black women wear their hair and then white women do it, it's called boxer braids. And then it becomes mainstream. And even our history, that's what people don't understand. Where if you look at in Washington, D.C., all those obelisks and all those things, you can find that in ancient Egypt, the same exact stuff. They even have ancient Egyptian art in the White House, and nobody talks about that. So it's like our culture for thousands, heck, even millions of years has always impacted everybody else. So how important is it for us? Because y'all know your history, everything at such a young age, which is powerful. So how important is it for our babies and for us being young to know our history starting off? Because then we can be more confident and then we can know what we actually bring to the table.
So important.
It's extremely important. Actually, Kennedy and I are helping to teach a on colorism, respectability politics, and
cultural appropriation.
Respect to y'all, then. Respect to y'all. That's amazing.
Tune into that. It's but we're actually talking about the cultural appropriation part. Knowing, like, the problem is not knowing. Like, genuinely, like, all the issues that especially our generation doesn't understand is about them, you know, lack of knowledge. Like, it's like braids. That's Black culture. Like, individual braids, like the cornrows, and them not calling it Black boxer braids, it's stealing from Black culture.
Yeah.
Either in you not knowing it, and is like, you know what I mean? At this point, now we're in 2020, you have access to everything.
Yeah.
That, like, you know what I mean? Things, and if you don't, you know, admit to your mistakes. I remember, we were actually talking about it for the class. They didn't know whether they should say all the examples, and all of us were like, yes, you should, because them knowing it and bringing light to it is when all of the issues are brought to light, and having the tough conversations because you already know. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Yeah, so
with the younger generation, like, understanding what they bring to the table, they understand then that our culture is our culture, and because it is, then it shouldn't be taken out of context, and it shouldn't be used for people who don't cherish it like we do. Like, understanding the importance for us, because I mean, education, of course, again, plays a big role in appropriation. It's important for us to understand why we're bothered when people do it, and that's because it means something. Context, it doesn't mean anything to them. So it's personal for us, and then people who are the appropriators need to understand that when they do appropriate, again, they're taking something that is personal and something that has and putting it in a context that is more palpable for people. And that in itself is a problem. Why do aspects of our culture have to come from a different person and accepted
or appreciated? And, like,
that's the word.
Back to the whole, like, it has a meaning to us. It goes from having a meaning to it just being pretty.
Exactly.
Or, you know, it's unique or different. And I'm like, we've been for years.
And it reduces us and our once again to something that isn't valued in its entirety. Aspects of our culture are valued by us because no one else wants to. But then when you want to put it somewhere else and, like, disregard its value, that's bad.
Y'all are preaching. There's nothing but facts. There's nothing but facts. And I think that this translates to Black is King. And what I mean by that is,
oh yes, definitely does.
When I saw it visually, aesthetically, it was everything that I needed. And me, I hate musicals, but I watched that from start to finish because I saw the symbolism that a lot of people weren't catching. Like when they put him in the basket, that represented Moses. Nobody saw that. Or like how he was going, or when he started elevating as a young man, and he literally went up to the ancestors and met God and started crying. No, I'm like, bro, nobody's catching this. Like, she's on her game. Or how she showed herself being like an African deity. Nobody's paying attention to that. And her being in water, cleansing herself. So I say all that to say is that I get mad when I see certain people say, oh, that's so demonic. And it's like, you don't even know your history. Like when she's showing the Yoruba priestess, people are thinking, oh, this is bad or voodoo is bad, not understanding that our ancestors used voodoo all the time. In Haiti, that's what they used to actually gain their freedom. So do you think that we as Black people, as a majority, that we know our history enough and that we embrace our African culture? Because I think we embrace European or Eurocentric ideas more, where we'll be like, I saw somebody on Twitter, Beyonce said Black is king, but Jesus is king, bro. Nobody even brought that up. Like, how come you can't say I'm a king too? Or how can you say, and it's in the Bible where it says ye are God. So we can't even look at ourselves as divine beings because we've been taught that we're sinful, or that we're dirty souls, or that we all of these bad things. So do you feel like we as Black people embrace our culture and our Blackness enough?
We don't embrace it.
No, not enough, yeah.
Two things. First, when you say the whole thing about how we're kind of shying away from the idea that black is, I remember, I can't quote it exactly, but like, if we, in the movie, it was like, if we see God as God and we God, how can we not see ourselves as gods?
Yes.
And
it's common sense.
Yeah, like we're children of God, but how do we not?
Yeah.
That resonated with me because, you know, so often we try so hard not to elevate ourselves, elevate our mindset. But I mean, if no one else is going to do it, we should do it. And if we have spirituality back that, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And the second thing, something that I just made a purpose was to not identify with African American because I'm not close enough with my African heritage. And so I identify with Black American. But after Black is King and seeing how close, how Beyonce was informed to really embrace our African culture, it made me reconsider my choice, my tag. And now I really do know exactly where I come from. And that goes to show that maybe our generation doesn't know enough to embrace who we are because we feel that we are.
We've been
so long.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
I mean, we do have two parts of us. We have the American part and we have our heritage, and both of those need to be acknowledged.
There you go.
Especially like in our age group, only identify with the Black culture that was created. Yeah. Like we only, you know, like we only parts that we use here to survive and make ourselves try and like grasp onto that culture, but we never go back into culture. I know, especially in Black is King, I was like, I am African. I was like,
start feeling that. Yeah.
I was like, my people were kings. Like I had a hit for this slavery, and
there you go.
So powerful. Like choose to kind of expand the timeline and remember that we were kings and queens before we became slaves, because then that doesn't only confine slave mentality or this American mentality.
Yes. And I know y'all know so much, so you probably already heard of this guy, Dr. Anthony Browder. If you ever get the chance, check him out. But he's from Chicago, Black man. He goes to Egypt, I think, like 100 times a year. And he's done so many findings. This guy's amazing. But Anthony Browder, check him out on YouTube. He has books, all of that. And he said something like last year that was so powerful, was that we've been so brainwashed that we don't even understand what is 400 years compared to almost 1,000,000 years of history that you have. Think about only 300 to 400 years out of 1,000,000 almost, or hundreds of thousands of years. And we just think of ourselves, and in school, our history starts 1619. That's it. So we think the whole time that this is what we are. We're enslaved beings, or we're always in Jim Crow, or we've always had to fight. And that's not true, right? So I think that what you all said was seeing that you have a rich history and seeing that through Black is King, and that was powerful. Like what your mom said, civilization started with us, and that's a fact. It's not racist, that's a fact. So I think that what you said was powerful of African American compared to Black, right? And I remember Toni Morrison, she said that we don't even think of as Black people, we have to have a hyphen, or every other group has to have a hyphen. But with white Americans, they're just called American, not European American, not Dutch American, not English American. So I think our identities are stripped from us. Our diets, what we eat, soul food is just scraps from slavery. Like nobody talks about that. Ham hocks, pork, like all these things are just all from slavery. So how do we start taking off some of that trauma? Because we don't realize how much trauma came from that.
I know, I was like, I don't know.
First, it takes Oh, okay. So what we also learned in our Justice for Black Girls class was about spiritual liberation. That is the first step.
It's like breaking a generational curse.
Yeah.
Generational curse of, you know, ourselves as lower than or less, having to strive 4 times, or, you know, like having that exhaustion put on us of, you know, working 4 times as hard. Is good. Yeah. So, go ahead.
First, so reconciling with, like, making sure that you are so secure in and proud of Blackness, that will kind of get you closer to that king or queen mindset. And pair that with educating yourself and tracing back your ancestors, and then then you're well aware of who you actually are, because when you do the liberation, you're aware of yourself in the spiritual sense, and then when you do your research, you're aware of yourself in the physical sense, historical sense, and then I think you kind of join the two parts of your identity, and then you move through the world knowing exactly.
Amen. That's right.
Like, I know we've learned from Black girls, like, no makes it so much easier. You know, learning about the African culture and understanding where our culture came from, and like, we were once kings and queens. That really does help in understanding that we are not confined to what happened to our ancestors. We are, like, you know, we can go through the world knowing that we're still kings and queens, but still acknowledging, you know, what happened to us. Um, and you know, sharing that along with other people not Black. I think that sees us in a different light of like perspective.
Yes.
Definitely that.
I love that. I love that. And what effect do you feel like we could have when it comes to religious groups, where it comes to Black churches, where it comes to the Muslims, or because we're a very religious people, whether it's through Islam, Christianity, what effect could we have as Black people to empower our people in these sections as well? Because I feel like sometimes for, and we already know that this is true for a lot of Black churches, sometimes we're taught the Bible through a very Eurocentric perspective. I remember growing up, and I just had this conversation with my dad. I was like, yo, it's crazy how in these Christian movies, they have Jesus and his disciples with a British accent. And Israel is in Northeast Africa. Nobody talks about that. He's described as being black, kinky hair, like all of these things. King Solomon described as being black. We already know this stuff. But I say all that to say is, how can we build our children and our friends' confidence when it comes to religion sometimes? Because I feel like through colonization, through slavery, we're taught a very Eurocentric perspective, or even how we were taught, or not we were taught, but in slavery it was taught that you having black skin is a curse. But then when you read the Bible, everybody was black. So how is that possible? So how can we break down some of that trauma too that's taught in the church as well? Not of course by all churches, but historically speaking from within the church sometimes.
Tough because it's so wide spanning. But growing up, my Jesus was now of course brown and, like you said, has kinky hair, but I don't know how to do it in the church entirely. Because I do plan to have to raise my children like in Christian. So I think the first step I imagine is like starting with my children. If they grow up in the church with sentiment, then they can maybe spread that sentiment within the church. So I think teaching our children, like Beyonce did with Black is King, is like couple your religiosity with spirituality.
Exactly. Yeah.
Make sure that you don't preach to yourself if you don't that you are unworthy, that you are sinful, are the bottom of the earth. Make sure that when you look in the mirror, you see that you are in the earth. That you see that you are someone who is godly. Like, that's something that I've personally done. It's really helped me. Honestly, I'll say like my relationship with God, because it's easier to like attach to the scripture when you also like have it in you.
Yeah.
Are secure in yourself, which is who God made. And I think if we could teach the churches that are putting out this year, then I think we'd be straight.
That's facts.
She said it perfectly. And what she said about starting it with the children, I personally think that is like the number one thing. So, like my niece, like even I was playing Black is King, and he's literally like 8 months old, and I'm like, yes, you need to be watching
already this. Being instilled. Yeah.
Like I was talking about it, just child in general, like The Princess and the Frog, like the first Millie and I were 6 years old.
Wow.
Like that long. So like you know, of who you are when you're a child, through. Like, you know, we were talking about it. I think like when we were in middle school, I was in the state of denial that I was black and that I didn't want to be black. I didn't really think I was black, and I didn't appreciate my black.
There you go. Yep.
So long to be like, I am black and I'm a child of God and I am able to do all these things that my white counterparts are, and I'm just as beautiful and I'm just as intelligent. Like, it took me probably until about 9th or 10th grade to be like, you know what, I am this and I'm okay with this.
Oh my gosh.
Representation and like creating things, like I'm so grateful that Beyonce created Black is King for children on Disney Plus, because like starting with them creates and filters that new generation of just like perfection. Like, they're accepting, they're happy with who they are, they're able to connect their spirituality with, you know, religion. And I think religion, so like it was perfect. Like, Black is King was the most perfect thing to come out.
It was the most needed thing.
Yes.
Perfect timing too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It had to be intentional.
Yeah.
Had to be intentional.
I don't know if they did a rush or something, because that
Let me tell y'all something too, real quick. The fact that y'all are expressing that you came into consciousness like around the 10th, 11th grade in high school, y'all are so ahead of my group of friends, my generation, because I didn't really become conscious until my freshman year of college, taking African American studies as my minor, journalism major, so I was exposed to more books, more readings. But the fact that you have this knowledge in high school is so powerful, because me just being a few years older, I'm 23. When we were in high school, it was like my sophomore year, Trayvon Martin died. And it's crazy that now for your age group, which all of us are technically the same age group, it's just years apart, with y'all have George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. So it's this constant circulation of the same things happening. But now this time, y'all have more knowledge than what we had, because y'all were actually exposed to social media way before us. And y'all were exposed to it at an earlier age. So I'm just going to say that y'all have more power. And I think you all are the ones that can actually change things more effectively too. And the fact that you're sparking these conversations in high school, which we say this all the time for people who went to Sandy Creek or Fed, McIntosh, if we knew what we knew now in high school, we would have probably got kicked out of school every day. So for y'all, so for y'all to be in there and being that conscious in high school, I'm telling you, when you all go to college, y'all are gonna be like the Avengers when it comes to consciousness. So just know that the sky's the limit. And since y'all know so much, I want to get you all's thoughts on this one thing that irks my skin, irks my soul when I hear black on black crime. So as people who's active right now, what are your thoughts when we talk about police brutality, when we talk about slavery, and certain people who are racist and they try to cover it up, say, well, what about Chicago, or what about black on black crime? So what is your retort to when somebody says that?
So I actually had a conversation about this, because we posted something from your right about black on black crime. But for me personally, I think the fact that black on black is the only sect of crime that has a name is deeply problematic, because it's not that crime only exists when it's black on black.
Yeah.
Also how it's used, because it's used as like definitely like a diverter, a conversation diverter.
Yes.
Because like it's so hard to put into words. Angry. But like it's just because black on black crime is kind of validate this black people make this situation, or like are just inherently angry or violent or whatever. But it's not that. Black on black crime to address is the context that started this, if you want to call it a violent pattern or whatever. It's not a violent pattern. I mean, why do people in neighborhoods steal? Because they don't have the resources.
Yeah.
It's just criminalized behavior, survival tactic. And that is called black on black crime. I know that what a lot of people also refer to as black on black crime is gang affiliated, but we also have to look at the context as well. Mm-hmm. Gangs, I don't want to say are only an important thing, they're not, but I mean, that's what I think of gangs. But what is a gang? It's a brotherhood. It's like a fraternity for people who don't have the support that they feel they should. And
Yeah.
you can bash a gang off, but how about if you want them to be gone, you give people in that neighborhood the support that they really need. It's really, it doesn't try to look at the problem holistically.
That's facts.
And makes it seem like we're the perpetrator of our problem, but that's not the case.
And what I've noticed, like, when people like in conversation, when they throw out black on black, they justify, like it's like they're justify police brutality, the police in urban cities, and why, like, you know what I mean? Use the existence of black on black crime. Like, first off, think about why black people are the number one group. Why are they the most? Why? Like, no one ever thinks about the why.
Exactly.
Like, they have the lack of resources, underfunding. Like, that is the number one reason. Like, no one wants to think about why do we incarcerate more black children? Why are black children funneled into from school? Like, the school to prison pipeline is black children, and like we've learned it in girls. Black girls are funneled to prison from school. You know, distractions or suspensions or expulsion. Like, people don't think about like the lack of resources that are provided in these communities to create this black on black. And like what you about the why is it the only one that has a name? Like, that literally blew my mind. I was like,
why isn't there white on white crime, Asian on Asian crime,
Thank you.
Jewish on Jewish crime, Hispanic on Hispanic crime? I mean, I can just keep going down the list.
no, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And sorry. You lit a fire under like, it's so crazy because really when black on black crime, it's like, oh, you know, police brutality is a thing. Oh, black crime. But I mean,
They just try to use that to justify police brutality.
They're not the same.
I will tell y'all this, and this will give you so much peace in the future because you're going to have these interactions throughout your senior year of high school. You're going to have these interactions when you first get to college. When it comes to white people deflecting, saying ignorant things, one, always know that they want a reaction, so then they can deflect. And two, know as well that white people, racist white people, do not want to look at themselves in the mirror. So you can always have peace in knowing if you ever get mad after a conversation, you're like, why did they bring up black on black crime? Or why did they bring up, oh, black people enslaved black people too? It's because they're trying to deflect and not look at what they did. So always know that, so you'll always have peace, so you won't get mad about that. And y'all, again, no, seriously, because it will save you a lot of time and energy, I promise you.
Yes.
Y'all have dropped so many facts throughout this conversation. Anytime y'all ever want to be back on the podcast, let me know. We'll make this happen again in person. Anytime y'all are mad, y'all want to talk about something, hit me up and we'll set this thing up again. Before we get out of here, because Instagram be tripping with a 1 hour rule on live. Where can everybody keep up with you all? How can we help support what you all are doing? And how can we get more active as well when it comes to our community? And also when it comes to Fayette County too, because all of us have grown up in Fayette County. And what's so dope is one day I was driving with my girlfriend to Zaxby's and I saw all these people at the park, right? And I always go to that park. And I was about to go there that day and I saw all these people at the park. I'm like, yo, man, COVID going on, so I might have to pass on going to the park. I scroll on Instagram and I see your mom, Talise, and I see that y'all were there and it was a protest. And knowing that y'all did that in Fayette County was amazing. So how can we get more active and know just because we don't live downtown, we can still be active here in the suburbs? So how can we get more active, and two, how can we support you all as well?
Well, as supporting us, we are actually on Instagram, Stay Conscious Media, and we are actually doing a podcast with our school, and then we're actually try to create Stay Conscious in like as a club organization. So we can create Stay Conscious clubs to have these conversations in school, because I like talking about school is actually shunned upon. Like they try not to talk about anything that would be deemed as controversial. So we want to create that. Of getting active.
We always advocate for conversation. You can have that with us or that you're friends with, and education. We have a list of recommendations for things to watch and things you can read on our page under the recommendations tab for our stories. And I think what's going to happen in the suburbs is definitely going to be more politics, so town halls, conferences, or talks with politicians, with police chiefs, and even though it's not in the streets, it's still something that is productive. So we're on the lookout for that. We are mouthpiece for getting information out to our followers.
Amen.
Yeah, and I'd definitely say, like, just to leave it on that note, I'd say, like, really, like, to learn and to be involved is to put yourself out there. Like, it's sometimes hard. Like, you talked about racial profiling. Sometimes do it when we're out. And, like, admit to yourself that you do that is one of the hardest things. I was, like, literally sitting there, like, wow, like, I really do that. Like, when I go out, like, it's hard. And, like, learning, it's all about progress and race with yourself. So I'd really, that's the number one thing, being active and being willing to be uncomfortable.
Yeah,
that's right.
And Miss Denise says vote.
That's facts. Save this live, please. All right, so everybody in the comments, I want for everybody to know this conversation will be saved. This will be posted on the 3 Milli Instagram page. But not just that, y'all should know how we do already. This will be posted on YouTube as well, so y'all do not have to worry. This live will be saved. No stress at all. Ladies, I'm serious when I say this. Anytime y'all want to chop it up, anytime something pisses y'all off, y'all want to talk about it, hit me up. We'll always set up a live. Once COVID dies down, y'all can come through. We'll have a podcast studio, everything set up. So, well, actually, I'm going to say that. Once everything is done, I would love to have you all come through and actually chop it up in person. But you all keep doing what you're doing. Enjoy your last year of high school. Kill it. Y'all are so intelligent. Know that the sky is the limit. We appreciate y'all. And once this is posted on YouTube, probably at the end of this week or next week, I'll make sure to share this with y'all, all right?
Thank you so much. So much and what you're doing. Thank you for having us.
Anytime. Y'all keep it up. Much love, all right? Again, y'all, don't panic. This will be posted on YouTube sometime, probably later this week or next week at the absolute latest. This will be posted on my Instagram page right now, on the 3 Milli Pod page right now. And if you haven't already, click the link in our bio, subscribe to our channel so you can check out all of our content. We have interviews coming all the time. Much love. I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in and tapping in. Y'all keep being amazing. God bless y'all. Once again, my name is Caleb Smith. Much love. Peace.